going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Breakdown Podcast here on Penn Live. I want to talk today about the quarterbacks. Obviously, this is the hot topic of the entire offseason for the Steelers. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. I get it. I understand why everyone wants to discuss it. So let's truly discuss it. Let's talk about what we've seen through two preseason games, what I saw on the tape against Buffalo, where things kind of stand right now. Because I think there are two thoughts and kind of the landscape of things, both in the national and local media and fan bases. So there's the thought that this is already over, was predetermined, and it wasn't a real competition. And Russell Wilson has been the starter, is the starter, and always will be the starter. There's that thought that goes around, and I can understand why you would think that. I don't personally think it was that. I never thought it was that. I always thought that this was a legitimate quarterback competition, but I always understood that Russell Wilson had a natural leg up just because he was in the pole position and because he has this pedigree. So naturally, that's where this came in. The second is that some people think, obviously, right, that Justin Fields should absolutely be the starter, and this is a legitimate competition going down to the 11th hour. I think that it was probably going to be Russell Wilson for most of the preseason, except I think the calculus changed a little bit when he had hurt his calf. The Steelers were able to see Justin Fields for 2 weeks with the first team, evaluate him, have him grow. They were able to see him with the first team in a game. They were able to evaluate him across 3 weeks of first team reps. Now they're kind of doing the same with Russell Wilson. But even though Russell Wilson's back, they're still flipping them. So every other series it's Russ and Justin, Russ and Justin, Russ and Justin. Would it be that surprising to me if we come out to Detroit and see Russ play two series and then Justin play two series and each of them with the ones? Not particularly. Wouldn't shock me. And that's because I think the pole position that Russ had, and I still think he has that to a degree, but I think it has been weakened a little bit just because they've been able to see Justin Fields, see what he can do, see his dynamic ability with his legs. He's got a very live arm. You see the ups and the downs with Justin Fields. I think they've also started to learn the ups and the downs with Russell Wilson. I think in practice, Russell Wilson looks great. I think he's a guy that darts the field to all levels, has a beautiful deep ball. But I also think in game, there are some things that you just don't get with both these guys. I think both of them actually, but Russ especially, in a live pocket, you see more of how they manage a pocket, how they go through their reads with protection, how they slide towards each side, how they set up their own throwing lanes, et cetera, et cetera. There are nuances to the quarterback position that I don't think you can always pick up when you are watching in a practice. A live pocket with live rushers, it affects how the O line plays, it affects how the QBs manage a pocket around that offensive line. And so I have always thought, in order to truly evaluate Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, you would have to see them in a live pocket. And they both had issues. Now, I watched the tape against Buffalo. First of all, for Russ, was it quite lifeless? Yes. Did I think he missed a million different throws and there should have been more production? Not really. So let's go over the two kind of missed opportunities, if you will. The first one was when they went to empty, and they ran Pickens into the most inside, the 3-by-2 side. He was at the 3 side, and he was the most inside guy against the linebacker. It was basically Y Haas, and he's coming across on a choice route against a linebacker on outside leverage and wins the middle. Instead, he throws the hitch outside to Van Jefferson. To me, that was a missed opportunity. The second is, the deep ball to Pickens. Did Pickens catch it? I've watched more and more. I think he did, but I think, it's the preseason, a difference of opinion in that kind of room. If that goes for catch, and they're down inside the 10 at that point. I think the narrative changes a little bit. But I did think Russ, we saw the limitations of Russ. From one, I still don't think he's as mobile as he should be. I truly believe that his calf injury is still not fully healed. I don't think he's fully mobile, and I don't think he can fully create backyard plays. I do think he ran somewhat. For example, Roderick Jones's first sack, he obviously gets beat to the inside very quickly, but there is a lane for Russ to step up into rather than stepping around. And he goes around and gives Rousseau a better angle and an easier sack. So I do think you can manage that pocket a little bit better. I also think, with him though, we've just seen the limitations. His height, the athleticism fading away as he gets older. When he gets into third and longs, it's just really tough. It really is. So teams just sit back and cover two. He has to check it down, and then you end up punting. We saw that multiple times. So if you don't stay ahead of the sticks with him, you're in trouble. And so I think you see the limitations of Russ. I don't put all the blame on Russ at all. Obviously the O-line did not play well. I still didn't really think, even on second viewing, I did not think the wide receivers particularly separated very well. But I also, recognize that there are limitations to Russ. He's not going to be the type of guy anymore that's going to make people around him lift it up. He's not going to be that franchise game changer anymore. So I think you have to take that into consideration with Russ. As for with Fields, I think there are moments where he does elevate others around him. I think there are moments where he makes boneheaded decisions. The would-be pick kind of just stared it down. Good play by Daquan Hardy to peel off his man, but it was a guy that he stared down and wasn't really the correct read. But he's dynamic out of structure. He is great with his legs. He's got an absolute cannon of an arm. He makes throws that I don't think most NFL quarterbacks even can make. And so this guy is dynamic, and this guy creates magic. But even still, he has hot and he has cold. And so there are different qualities of both these guys, but they are very similar players in that they are, first of all, they run into sacks, they have bad pocket management, and they also have differing issues in how they throw over the middle of the field. I think Russ can't see and create open throwing lanes. I think Fields sometimes is a tick late in his internal timer. So there's pluses and minuses to both these guys. I will say, I think when Justin Fields has been the quarterback, I do think that the offense has moved better, but he still hasn't created significant success, right? Just because they are moving better with Fields, but still there are issues with both of those guys. Both those guys have shown issues, both those guys have shown limitations, et cetera, et cetera. And so where we stand right now is not too dissimilar from where we stood on the first day. I do think that if Fields has a really good game this game and Russ struggles, I think we could see Fields potentially get there, but I do expect Russ to start week one. And more importantly, I'm just not sure if that's the correct decision. I think I can envision building an offense easier in 2024 around Justin Fields than I can Russell Wilson. And again, both these guys have obvious drawbacks to their game. They have upsides to their game too. I just think it's easier with the quarterback run game. With what Justin Fields does well, I think you can build it around him fairly easily. And I think he can operate a passing game still pretty well when you give him the chance to. Now, trust me, it's not like he was anything perfect against the Bills. There were a few plays that left you scratching what are you doing to a degree, but there were also plays where you're like, wow. I mean, this guy makes some incredible plays at times outside of structure. And so we'll see. I don't I think you knew, I'll say this. If you came into the preseason watching tape of what Justin Fields was like in Chicago and what Russell Wilson was like in Denver, none of this should surprise. What they were getting was they always got guys that were cheap on the market because other teams didn't value them at higher levels. It was quite simple as that. And so these guys were two lottery tickets. It felt like a transitional year at the position. And so they got two lottery tickets, and let's see if one of them can hit. That's really what it was like. Felix has more upside, long-term upside. I think it's easier to build around him. But I understand why you would do Russ too, because Russ, for example, is a vet that when he gets a chance to, he processes well, and he can hit his guys pretty well, especially down the field. So there are still pluses to Russell Wilson. It's just I also understand where you're coming from if you're seeing Fields, and so it's really it is a true up and down situation. It's hot and cold. It's an expected situation though. You should have known, if you saw the tape from last year on both these guys, that you weren't necessarily getting an all pro here. You probably weren't getting your next franchise quarterback. I think that's what's happening here. But I do think personally from what I've seen, I would go with Fields. I think they will go with Wilson, and we'll see where things go then to start the season. But I think we're going to get to see these guys again against Detroit. Wouldn't surprise me if we see them even 50-50 split it. But I do expect them to play a lot, and I think both of them are going to get a chance to show what they can do. All right, folks, thanks for watching Steelers Breakdown. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. If you are listening to this on a podcasting platform, make sure to leave a review. Be back tomorrow with more.